Tuperas y tuperas, today on DOOP by the River. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a homegrown signing to talk about. It's pretty juicy stuff as well, so definitely we'll stay tuned for that one as we discuss that. Of course, we're going to look back at the massacre that happened in our nation's capital as the Union do it again against DC United, as we also look ahead to this upcoming weekend against the Colorado Rapids. The boys out in the Rocky Mountains are coming to Chester. And don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Do not miss this episode of DOOP by the River. Let's get it started, guys. Done!
DOOP by the River
doesn't do anything well. There is not one.
I'm sorry. There was no creativity.
As a Union fan, I take that all day.
Another DP. We need to go get Mario Balotelli. And that is right. Welcome, everyone, to DOOP by the River, the show where we follow everything Philadelphia Union. And, of course, we are brought to you by Philly Sports Network. Before we dive into today's episode of DOOP by the River, real quick, I want to thank you guys for checking on out, whether you're live on YouTube, Twitter, or if you're watching this on the podcast streaming sites. Real quick, if you are watching this on YouTube, definitely hit that like button. That would truly mean the world to us. And subscribe for all of your live viewings of DOOP by the River. And like I mentioned, we are live, we are available wherever you stream podcasts. So make sure you guys are subscribed and rate. And never miss out on an episode of DOOP by the River. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you today. My expert in duping, as always, with me, Sir Julian Carranza, Shop Friedberg. Justin, what's up, baby? How you feeling, man?
You know, it's another week, another just dress down of our nation's capital. This time on the soccer field. You know, it's a wild thing to see. But you know, always glad to be here.
Absolutely, man. And real quick, just want to give a big shout out. You know, Justin, we have a lot of friends, dear friends to this podcast. We love people here, and one of our favorite peoples. I know that's not a real word, but Paul Catrino. If you guys didn't check out what was going on social media, it was kicking out transphobia. It was an event. It was a drag event, essentially. And our boy Paul actually went out and performed and did a fantastic job, knocked out the ballpark. Justin and I were there, and we just wanted to give a big shout out to Paul. Obviously, Paul is very connected with the universe, as I like to call it. And he's a dear friend of this podcast. And, you know, I think we have to bring it up here because it was a great cause. It was soccer related as well. And we're really proud of Paul, man. So, Paul, if you're listening, we love you, buddy.
Yeah, you know, it was an absolutely great event. It was, you know, a tournament that Paul and I were absolutely thrilled to be a part of. It's a cause that we absolutely believe in. And, you know, when Paul, you know, as soon as Paul told me he was going to be performing, and, you know, he told me his stage name, Serotonin, which was great. And it took me a minute. You know, listen, at the end of the day, it's part of our message, and it's part of the serotonin vibes. And you know what? You know, it's honestly, it was a fun time. You know, it was a fun group of people. I was talking to so many people there, you know, who, like, you know, as soon as I mentioned, and I, you know, they saw the jersey and I mentioned talking about the team and all that, and, you know, people were just, it was such a fun time, and there were so many great people there. It was such a great environment, and, you know, it was all for a good cause. And, you know, Paul put on a show. I mean, if you see the performance, you see it on Twitter and Instagram. Paul made those go-go boots work, and I was impressed because I would have no coordination, and so I would have been, you know, ass over tea kettle and just been, you know, on my ass. So Paul, more power to you for nailing the routine, to be honest.
Yeah, what a lot of people don't know, Paul actually came to my house to do all that makeup. So to see him come in and transform right before my eyes, it was pretty remarkable stuff. And then, of course, you know, he knocked it out the ballpark, man. He was himself. You know, Paul doesn't always take a lot of things too seriously. He's just like a free flowing spirit dude, and it was just a great performance overall. But yeah, I figured, you know, we start off by, you know, shouting out Paul. You know, he is part of the universe, and it was a great cause that we were celebrating on Sunday. And we hope for more. I think a lot of people have asked for when is the next I guess performance for Serotonin. Now that's going to be the stage name. We're hoping very soon, Justin. We're hoping very, very soon. I have real quick here. I've been looking here to shoot for the people who are watching this on the viewing screens here. Here's Paul, man. This is what a beautiful woman we got here.
I told Paul as soon as he walked up, and with the flannel on, it gave me very Wednesday Adam, Adam's Family vibes. And he goes, "That's what we were looking for." And then he goes and puts on this like headband, and I'm like, "Oh my god, you are Cher!" Like legitimately, it was like and he just smiled, and I was like, talk about honestly, I could never pull that off. And as I told your Nat, I said I'd have to shave the beard, and I don't think I could do that. I'm like I would have no problem getting up. I'm like, but the beard, I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could part with it. I said, and I quote, "I would look like Mr. Fucking Clean," and she agreed, and she laughed, and she agreed.
It's one thing my Nat knows how to keep it real. That's for sure, man. But it was a lot of fun, man. Hoping for some more from Mrs. Serotonin here. Justin, as we move forward to talking about our club, I really found the latest news quite amusing to myself, Justin. So if you guys haven't heard, the Union have made yet again another homegrown signing, but this one's kind of interesting here. Doesn't kind of feel like the other one. So they signed Jeremy Ruffaniello. The interesting part of Mr. Jeremy here, he's a midfielder. He's 22 years old, so, a little bit older for one of these homegrown talents. But, also we did sign Chris Donovan, who was a little bit on the older side as well. But the interesting part about this, Justin, so I'm going to give you just kind of the timeline of Jeremy Ruffaniello, right? So in 2018, he played with Bethlehem Steel, which is, as we now know, Union 2, right? So in 2018, that same year, he leaves for college to go play for Penn State. Comes back in 2018, doesn't come back here, I'm sorry. Signs professional overseas since Philadelphia did not want him. In 2020, he signs with Indy 11 because Philly did not want him. 2021-22, signs professionally with Red Bull 2 because, again, Philadelphia did not want him. So now in 2022, Justin, Red Bull wanted to sign Jeremy to the first team. But then the Union decide, nah, we're actually going to sign Jeremy because since we own his rights as a homegrown. Dude, like, I feel like right now, like growing up watching this soccer team, we always hated Red Bull, and I always felt like Red Bull had the edge over us. Now, this doesn't have really much implications on the pitch, and look, Jeremy could become, just a USL player. We don't really know. But just to throw a little bit of like a little edge, a little jab in the gut to the Red Bull, it amuses me, Justin. It makes me giggle. It puts a smile on my face. Where I know a lot of people are looking at NYCFC as the main rival, and I don't even know where we're at with that type of discussion. But that definitely made me chuckle just a little bit here. But what do you want to say about this Jeremy signing here for the Union?
So I think and a lot of some Red Bull fans got mad, and some there's a lot of context that is missing from this, and they're like, oh, how could this happen? But they didn't want him. Blah 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 blah. The part that people seem to be leaving out, and it's a pretty big part. So because he never signed an MLS contract, rules as currently stated, the Union own his MLS rights. The Red Bull would need to pay. They need to pay some Gerber bucks, and I think it's like under 100,000. Like for a player like that, it was not like a Thomas Romero. It wasn't going to cost a whole lot. Red Bull weren't willing to do that, so they released him, and the Union signed him. Like it's very simple. It's like, yeah, okay, they had a couple chances to sign him and didn't, and then all this happens, and then they sign him. It's like, yeah, you know what? Is it potentially to spite the Red Bull? Yeah, there's a chance it could be. There's a chance they actually maybe wanted to sign him. I find it hilarious because a lot of people seem to be missing that context, and it's kind of a crucial one. But if Red Bull weren't willing to pay whatever allocation money to get his rights to sign him, that's on them as well. And at the end of the day, the union could always use more depth, and who knows? I mean, I legitimately don't know his positioning. At this point, it feels like he could probably maybe be a shuttler. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him, and we'll see. I mean, but like again, that's on Red Bull for not paying whatever allocation money, because the rules are changing, but as the rules currently state, this is how it goes.
And I listen. I do agree with you, and I do understand that the rule entail, but it kind of feels like the union caught Red Bull sleeping just a little bit, not thinking about that as well. But it's just kind of funny. But again, like I don't know what to expect from this. Obviously the midfield is kind of pretty stacked. I mean, we'll obviously see what kind of signings happen over the summer period as well. But he's on the first team, and we'll see what happens with Mr. Ruffaniello. So I thought it was interesting. We definitely wanted to bring that up here as well. What's up? We got Michael Thomas in here. The contacts is MLS Homegrown rights are wild. I mean, he's not lying.
That's part of it too. Like, you talk about like, Caden Clark was what I think like Minnesota's like homegrown, like before they disbanded whatever they have as an academy.
Yeah.
Homegrown rights, when it comes to signing players to transfers, I mean, people forget that the union had to pay Orlando X amount of money because Nate Harriel was just inside the 100-mile radius. I think he was like 92 or 93 miles, just outside of Orlando, but he was still within the 100-yard radius at the time because Miami wasn't. It was bonkers that was even that they had to pay them because he was outside. Like, and now there's basically going away, and it's like, but it's hilarious because, man, I mean, every time I think, like, I tell people, like, every time you think MLS rules, and I tend to know enough of them and know a lot of them, you really don't. Like,
exactly
you do, and you don't know MLS rules. That's why I tell people, like, every time people are like, oh, what does this mean? I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you an answer, but one, you may not believe it. Two, you may not understand it. And three, I might be even getting it wrong, and I know the rule. Like, I know how it's laid out. And I bet me this,
or they'll change it too. Like, that's another thing. Like, they'll change it.
And then they will just change it out of the blue, and you're like, wait a minute,
when did this happen?
And it'll be like a slight change, and it'll just be changing the wording, and it throws off the whole rule. Yeah, listen, MLS rules are like, whose line is it anyway? The points, the bucks are made up, and the rules don't matter.
That's pretty much it. Mike, this is a good one. Can't wait for Weston McKinney to sign as a homegrown player.
Well, I mean, I don't know if the rules change, that might not necessarily apply. Who knows?
Is he from Texas?
Well, so he's through their academy, and
okay, so he has to be from that area.
So when when he signed for Juve, the only reason that FC Dallas got money from the sale was because, I mean, they had at the time, it's any sales prior to, I think it was 2020 or 2021, when the U.S. finally agreed to start participating in solidarity payments, which, it's like, if like Christian Pulisic gets sold to another club, then I believe like the Hershey Classic, wherever we play, like they get money, percentage of a sale. Like it's designed to help a lot of the youth clubs that end up producing a lot of these players. And Dallas, it was before that, but now it's like they're trying to, like, so the U.S. now participates in it, so it's kind of a weird, but yeah, he technically would.
Mike also brings up a good point too. Good news: MLS revamping homegrown rules a bit, and the union are going to benefit big time from a recruitment standpoint. So what's going to be like college, where you can recruit a kid? You're Oregon, you can recruit a kid from New Jersey, like that type of thing.
Yeah, so they're basically kind of the Ruffaniello signing essentially, like, is an example of a player that with the rule changes, Red Bull would probably have been able to sign, but as the rules state, they weren't able to. So like that's kind of how they're looking at it, and it might make things a little easier, but at this point, who knows?
Should be very interesting to see. We'll see how this all plays out for the homegrowns going forward in the future within this league. But let's move on real quick, Justin. Not too much to talk about, but kind of a big score line to talk about here as we move to back to our last Saturday match as the Union went down to our nation's capital and Audi Field to face off against DC United. The Union again started in the 4-4-2 diamond with the usual main 11 suspects as per usual. With again, we will note that Olivier Mbaizo started again at that right shuttle midfielder. I'm sorry, at that right fullback position. And then Jack McGlynn got the start at that left shuttle midfielder. That was the only main differences. But this was an absolute just thrashing of DC. Goals for Mikel Wagner started in the 37th minute, followed by Daniel Gazek, essentially 4 minutes into injury time. He gets a penalty kick. Julian Carranza gets back-to-back goals, 47th minute and in the 70th. I'm sorry, he gets his hat trick in the midst of 30 minutes. 47th minute, 70th minute, and the 74th minute. And then Cory Burke would rally on with his new haircut. He's got no hair anymore in the 79th minute. And the Union walk away with a 6-0 throbbing. Look, Justin, we could talk about the mishaps of DC, and I think with Taylor Twellman, I think we actually talked about this on Sunday. With Taylor Twellman, I really do believe in, how is it that this club, DC, I'm referring to, was the class of this league in the beginning and now is an absolute joke. But in the same note, what do we actually learn from this victory here? Because when I look at DC, they were obviously missing pieces. The defense was a weakness already. And for the Union, I mean, this was like a recipe for success. It was coming off of a subpar performance. We're looking to bounce back. What did you take away from this one?
I took away, I would probably say 3 big things. Number one, DC is bad. You can say, yeah, losing a game 6-0 typically it is not a it's like, oh, you have a bad game. That happens. But when you lose to the same team twice in just about a month by a combined scoreline of 13-0, yeah, I know they were missing but you should that first half it was only 2-0. And then the Union just broke it open. And that is just absolutely mental that the Union could carve them up like that, especially in that second half, and do what they did. The second thing I've learned is that despite what Andrew Wiebe and some of the people at MLSsoccer.com say, I think the Union absolutely have the best front three in the entire league. You now have 2 double digits goal scorers, which I said was at least a distinct possibility with Carranza knocking on the door. You now have Gazdag at 13. He chipped in a nice PK. Carranza with a hat trick is up to 12. Uwa channeling his inner Joel Embiid, boxing out the defender.
I like what you did there.
The nice thing about that play, and I don't know if, and the announcers made a mention of it, but not people notice. Daniel Gazdag runs across. He pulls 2 defenders, including the defender who is on Uwa at the time. That gives Uwa a chance to take a touch and rip a shot. And I mean, he has been absolutely clinical in front of the net. Julian Carranza, I mean, that third goal, I mean, come on. That was a gift of a hat-trick goal. Like that, you could not have written up an easier goal for him to score. And this front three is clicking. They've gotten, especially since May, like I said, it would take time. April, May, you start to see it. And in this summer, especially July, since July, this front three, I mean, Gazdag has been consistent all season. Carranza has, has really absolutely come into his own. Uwa, it took a little bit of time, but all three of them together, they have absolutely run, circles around defense. They've terrorized MLS defenses. I would be scared of walking into Chester in the playoffs and having to deal with that front three. And my third point, the Union have depth. I will, Jack McGlynn once again putting on a solid performance in the midfield. El Brujo, playing, I think, as, a El Brujo performance that you can say, okay, you know what? He didn't do too much. You didn't really spot him and go, oh no, he was playing all like he did a typical Brujo performance, which was, I feel like, quiet. Like the quiet performances are the ones where I'm like, that's a good performance for him. And Cory Burke, people forgetting about Cory Burke. He's got 6 goals on the season. Like, he's not going away. He's a dangerous threat. He's becoming a super sub dangerous threat off the bench. That is 2 goals in 3 games in coming off the bench. I mean, like, we talked about the Union not having, forward depth in prior years. I think the Union are in a prime position. And then when they brought on the kids, Paxton Aronson nearly puts in a 7th in the 93rd minute. Like, the Union were just, they were absolutely clinical. And I think after a tough game in Dallas, and let's be honest, that I wasn't expecting much, but it wasn't their best performance, despite the chance that they could have easily walked away with a draw. This is, this is a right the ship, statement kind of a game where it's like, you have now won 3 games by scoring at least 6 goals. That is just like,
that's not Union.
Yeah, this is not the Union. Like, we keep talking about
how we're used to.
And the thing is, a lot the ML, like MLSsoccer.com is finally starting to realize that, and they're going like, the Union don't score this many goals that often. Like, they are scoring 2 and 3 goals a game. They are starting to put in these kind of performances that you're going, okay, wait a minute. The Union might not only have an amazing defense, they also are an absolutely, dangerous and potentially, a juggernaut of an offense. Like, I think people even still, like, I think they're finally starting to come around. And if I am opposing defense, if I'm opposing coaches, who do you stop? Because even if you stop one of the front 3, say Gazdag has an off night, Uwa and Carranza can still create chances on their own. They still have Ali and Jack and Leon and Brujo to feed them balls. You have Nate, you have Olivier, you have Jack and Jakob and Kai. Like,
we got bodies.
You have people constantly feeding the attackers the ball. And you got all these young and hungry players coming off the bench. You got wily veterans. You can look up and down this roster and go, it's dangerous. Like, you could feel pretty solid starting 11s mixing and matching, various players on this roster. And I think even compared to last year, I think you couldn't say that. And it's insane. It is dangerous. And it blows my mind that the Union are in this position where they can, drag and drop players in there and still have performances like this.
Last year was a really good team. It was like, we talked about it constantly. It was just really the forward position was really missing. And I really think Ernst deserves a lot of credit. As I'm looking at this team right now and analyzing it, number one, Julian Carranza, as watching this club, I've never seen a forward with the touch that this dude has. I mean, dude, he's had like 2 curling shots, and he had one obviously Saturday. Like
with the off foot,
it's filthy. Straight up, it's just absolute filth here. Couple things I wanted to bring up here to your Cory Burke topic. He gets a lot of hate in this fan base, and like, look, I'm not going to sit here and defend Cory Burke and act like he's something that he's not. He's just a serviceable backup striker, but don't look too far now, guys. But Cory Burke is now in the top 5 goal scorers in Union history. Now, I know that doesn't mean a lot. I mean, you look at the top 5, it's literally
context,
Sebastian,
context,
Casper, CJ, but dude, the dude still gets a lot of crap, and he gets talked about like he's a scrub, like he should be a backup in USL, which I don't agree with either. And I do think that you should take that with some validity because, dude, that's pretty remarkable for the story that is Cory Burke. And also, too, all 3, Gazdak, Carranza, and Ua, have put themselves in the top 20 in goal scoring. Again, we all know who are the goal scorers in this club's history, but that's pretty quick for guys who've been here for no more than a year and a half. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It like looking at their front 3, looking at the chemistry that they've developed, and and we joked with Zach, about his Daniel Gazdag MVP prediction, but I said he would have a pretty solid year. I didn't think MVP. I mean, obviously now he's in the conversation, but this is his second year. I mean, he came around midseason, between between qualifier call-ups and injuries. He didn't really get going until about like July or August. Like, it took him a little bit, and you saw flashes. You absolutely saw the player that he has become, and it's over. Like, looking at him this season, second year, finally having a striker, Julian Carranza, probably the underrated signing of the offseason. Yeah, think about it. Remember how many when we signed him, how many people were like, "Oh my God, if this is the only striker signing, I'm blah blah blah, Ernst Tanner, get Ernst that, it's just like, it was ridiculous." And obviously, Carranza wasn't going to be the only signing, but Ua comes in, and Ua has the visa issues, and he picks up an early injury, and Carranza is starting to score, and he's starting to disrupt. And the first game, I said it from the first game, when I saw Carranza dropping deep, and you saw that that give and go with him and Gazdag, I'm like, oh my God, Gazdag already looks great. I'm like, he has a striker that is willing to drop deep, willing to connect with him. Now Ua has been putting in that work. Like, it is telling when Gazdag can do that, can really get in on the game. And when you have someone like El Brujo or Jack McGlynn, and Daniel Gazdag doesn't have to drop deep, and he can just follow up on these runs and essentially become a third forward and crash the box and generally just create more havoc. It blows my mind. And yeah, Mike was right. Like, I was tough on Cory early in the season. It was like, but I think that's also, because he was getting more starts. Him as a super sub, Mike is right. Cory running at a tired defense is scary because, like, he's not, absolutely breakaway speed, but he's got some pure athleticism that when a tired defense in the 70th minute is dragging, and say that you're up 2-0, who does Jim throw on? Cory. And it basically just tells him, run, just create havoc and create hassle. And that's what happened on the 4th Union goal. Like, he pressures, and he gets a shot, it hits off the post, and then Carranza follows up. But like, his pressure on Alfaro is the reason that goal happens. And if Alfaro almost pulled him down, like, Cory could have gone down, but you know what? He creates the chance. He gives it to Carranza. Carranza tries to black heel the Gazdag. The shot gets blocked and it hits out the post. Like, that's the type of stuff that you get from a Cory Burke on like 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's like that it just blows my mind. And if I am most defenses, I should be absolutely terrified that the Union have a striker waiting in the wings so they can throw on for 20 minutes
Yeah.
and create just as many chances as their starting front three does.
I completely agree. And again, to your point as well, me and Corey, it's a different pace of what you're bringing on. He's not the most technical in the box, but when you have the speed and, obviously you like the high press as well, those are things that he can definitely help you out with. One more point, because we do need to move on to our next match. I did find it funny that after our loss on Wednesday to FC Dallas, there was a lot of noise coming out of LA. And this thing going on between the Union admin and the LAFC admin and the fan bases, it's been pretty interesting. But I will note this. LAFC only got a 1-0 victory midweek at home to DC United. And whereas the Philadelphia Union went into DC, beat them 6-0, and overall in 2 game matches beat them 7-0. So I'm gonna leave that right there for LA, because we got
and hey, they did also lose to San Jose 2-1, but we beat them. But hey, it is what it is.
It's gonna be fun, Justin. I do hope we meet up with those guys in that game that we do need to be playing in later on this season. But let's get to it, Justin, because I'm excited for this one. We got a club that we haven't seen in here in a while. I think since 2000. I think since Tim Howard was a member of this club.
Yeah, it's been a while. They were supposed to play in 2020, and I was supposed to go out to that game. Obviously, COVID changed anything, but yeah, it's been a while since we've played this team.
Absolutely, man. So I'm really excited to talk about one, and to help us get perspective of the other side, please welcome from the Denver Rapids podcast, Mr. Mitch Carroll. Mitch, what's going on? How you doing?
What up, guys? Thank you for having me. Stoked to be here.
We really appreciate you coming on in here, man. Obviously,
yeah, of
we
course.
need the perspective of Colorado and Denver, of course, and the Rapids. And so who else better than to go to the Denver Rapids, man?
Thank you. Yeah. Actually, DNVR, make sure you check us out. We're a young network. We kind of subscription based, akin to the Athletic or something like that. We're also in Chicago at CHGO and Phoenix PHNX.
Nice, man.
Swall City Network. We started up our Rapids coverage full time this season. It's me and a couple other guys here, and we it's been a fun season for us.
That's pretty cool. So what we got a bunch of t-shirts behind? What do we got back
there?
Yeah,
so I'm the head of merchandise. That's my day job here, is I'm the head of merchandise. So I run run for all 3 networks. So this is actually my podcast areas in the Phoenix area. So this is a bunch of Sun shirts and Cardinal shirts and all that. Rising, Phoenix Rising down there, the USL shirt. I got all sorts of stuff in here. And so I do that, and then turn around and do some soccer podding, and then turn around and ship some t-shirts again. So yeah, that's kind of my.
All right, I might have to hit up on that Phoenix Rising, because I am a USL gun for hire. So I will take any and all. I have Pittsburgh Riverhounds jersey. I have a Hartford Athletic jersey.
Sorry to make a bunch of extra noise on the pod. But
you're good, man.
I am always down for.
We have supporter scarves for them too.
Oh,
and they're like, because it's Phoenix and it's a trillion degrees, it's like the t-shirt like summer weight.
Oh, it's like the silky.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Those are the summer scarves. Those are nice.
Yeah. I got it all. Yeah, that's my whole thing. So we also, at least in Denver, not in the other markets yet, but we have a bar here. That it's like our bar. So during the Avs run here at the Cup, it was a full 200 to 300 people a night packing it out. All the way through the final. Yeah, it was sick. It was a really good time. So yeah, check us out if you're in town. Obviously, we're here. We're always here.
Absolutely, man.
Play, so it's pretty fun.
Mitch, we're here in Philadelphia. We don't know anything about good hockey, so we'll keep it the same.
It's been a little while.
I'm not a hockey man. I can't tell you. I can't. No comment. I plead the fifth.
Not a problem, man. Well, Mitch, real quick before we dive into, kind of talk a little about the Denver Rapids. Obviously you guys do cover the Colorado Rapids. Is there a different, is a certain perspective? We'll talk a little bit about the show that you guys do for the.
So DNVR Rapids, we we have. Like DNVR as a whole has been a very community-driven sort of thing, right? Like we have our bar because it's a place where diehard fans, crazy fans, like to come and watch their team, and so that's where, until we just kind of renovated and reopened, all my merch stuff was down there, and you'd have fans come in for like a Tuesday night Nuggets game, and it's like, okay, this is like, hey, I had to stop by the bar. I was in town on business. I had to come to the bar and watch a Nuggets game. I love, I follow your shows, whatever, and so. trying to find that niche in Rapids coverage, which there's already some pretty well established stuff. There's the C38 guys, which are the supporters group here. They have a pod that they run. There's Holding the High Line with Rabbi and Red. And those are pretty much like the super analytical, and then like the voice of like the true supporters group. And what we're trying to do is kind of bring in those longtime Broncos fans that have been subscribed to DNVR for years, and bring in, you know, the Rockies fans and those guys that are looking for supplemental sports, right? Like when the Rockies aren't good, which is most of the time, like what are you gonna do all summer? You can check out the Rapids with us and have fun with it, right? And you know, it's that's kind of the hole we're trying to fill, is like you're at the bar talking. And so we're friends with all those guys across the pods. We have them on, you know, if we want to get analytical with a match, we have that, you know, we'll bring on our buddy Joseph, or if we have, you know, like whatever there is, we try and bend the guest to that. And we're just kind of the three dudes at the bar talking soccer.
Man, I really appreciate the way you do it. I think it reminds me a lot what I try to do here in Philly. Like I do understand that there's been an established fan base here for 10 plus years, but you know, I think you can, you know, test the struggle as well. You know, trying to advocate a league that's a little bit newer, but obviously sport is really big around the world.
Oh yeah.
But trying to advocate to those NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB fans, and you know, it's just another sport. I mean, what's it to you? I mean, you watch basketball and hockey in the winter. What's it to baseball and soccer in the summer? That's why I love the summer schedule for the MLS.
Well, and it sucks that MLS people haven't caught up to the MLS catching up, right? Like they're still have this like decade old view of what the MLS is, that it's, you know, this farmers league, but you know, reduced that by whatever, you know, it's like, it's not the case. There's tons of money being poured in, and there's you know, it's tons of talent. There's tons of media coverage. It's easy to find if you look for it. And, you know, we're just trying to add to that. And, you know, it's, I'm sure you guys see this too. Like there's the hardcore group, and then very tough to pull in, right? You get tickets from work, or your, you know, your kids, like
the casual
you get 4 kids for the kids. And it's like, there's not that secondary full ring of fans. And so we're trying to just kind of expand that as big as possible. Yeah.
I love that, man. I absolutely do love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mitch, let's talk about the club that you do cover there, with the Colorado Rapids. It's very interesting. It was though a really good 2021 year. I don't think, I think Justin and I didn't anticipate the Rapids to go all the way to the conference finals. You know, same like us as well. But it was a little shocking. Guys had a couple sales, which, by the way, you know, we love seeing Wilson Trust doing his thing over in the championship. But you know, not this year now, 11th place, not far out of a playoff spot, 2 points away from the Galaxy.
6th. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and 6 as well. And what's I kind of want to know from you, what's been the difference between this club of Colorado from last year's club?
Oh man, I mean, I think Kellen Acosta was obviously a big loss, right? But you've also had a season to move on from that, and it's easy to say losing a guy like Kellen shouldn't. Like if you have your 11 in your structure and your youth you can supplement with and your moves, it shouldn't be that big of a loss. And I think they did a pretty good job of bringing in people, and injuries hit early, like right before CONCACAF champions against Comunicaciones. Brian Galvan tore his ACL. That's a guy who can play the 10, can play outside, plays really well with Diego Rubio. And that was huge. You get Abubakar Keita from Columbus to be like a center back that you can maybe take Trusty's place before he leaves, tears his ACL before the season. Now you're kind of scrambling. Brian Acosta, while a vet MLS guy, like truly does it for the badge kind of guy, got that dog in him. That's not a like for like with Kellen Acosta, right? So you really kind of had, what you saw early was a lot of change, like a lot of, what do we try here? 5 back early into 4 back to 5 back. Now pretty content with the 4 back. And then injuries. Jack Price has missed most of the season. That's the captain. That's, you know, he is probably the best set piece taker in the MLS or close to it. Dangerous, like truly dangerous, can put that ball anywhere, and just a leader. And he's missed time with a calf, missed time with a hamstring, now has a chest injury, and it's just like thing after thing after thing. And it just is slowly chipped away, right? And it's just the margins, and the margins don't sometimes it doesn't bite you and sometimes it does. And I think this season has been maybe the worst case scenario of that, where it's like, if you ran this season, even with the same injuries, 10, 100 times, this is probably on the lower end of the outcome, right? It's just like these little moments here and there that cost them a point. Twice against Houston, they've given up a late equalizer, right? That 4 points has them in 6th right now, but instead they only got 2. And it's, it's just these little things like that just created this frustrating and tough team where it just has these flashes. And then they find these little grooves, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, it's like, yeah, Rapids, we got it. All right, cool, we're cruising. And then, and then you're 24 straight unbeaten at home. You give up 3 goals in the first 20 to Nashville, and that's over. And now you're not a great home team anymore this season. It's just all these little things. And now their back's against the wall. And if they don't get points, they probably need 15 out of the last 8 to make the playoffs conservatively. And who knows? We'll see. We'll see. Crazier things have happened in the MLS than that.
Mitch, so I guess to that point as well, Mitch, I do want to ask Robin Fraser. I thought he did a fantastic job last year. How has he handled this year's team with the inconsistencies?
I really think Fraser's probably one of the top 5 coaches in the league. I don't know if you can put a number on it, but he is. Yeah, I think he's truly one of the best defensive minds in the league. And he's done a really good job in terms of, I think he's gotten a lot out of the roster that he has, especially after your plans kind of got ruined immediately, right? And, they traded for Gustavo Vallecilla, who's been a nice depth piece there from Cincinnati at center back. But, they spent $1 million on Max Alves from Brazil, came up, hasn't really, no goals, no assists, had 1 goal in the CCL game, but that's it. And just, this team just gets yellows, so it's a suspension every week. It's this, they're 3rd in the league in yellows, and it's just, I think I said it was one of the worst outcomes. I think without Fraser, it's the worst possible outcome. I think they're chilling with SKC without Fraser. I think it is truly like a disaster of a season without Fraser.
Holy crap, man!
Yeah.
Justin, anything you wanted to know about this Colorado team?
No, I think that kind of hit it on the head, and you talk about all these changes, trading away Mark Anthony Kaye in the middle of the season. That, I think to a lot of people came out of nowhere.
It definitely came quick here too, for sure.
Yeah, like the inconsistencies, just some of the boneheaded plays. I was watching last weekend's game against Houston, and Brian Acosta's already on a yellow, and he pulls whatever. I looked at that tackle and went, man,
why? Just let him go.
Yeah, you're on a yellow. You don't need to touch him. Just let him go.
It's
just like you clip him, and it's like the ref's standing right there. And I looked and went, well, I guess that's one player you're not gonna have to worry about this week. And then the goal, the tying goal comes out of nothing from a shot outside the box, on a play that it came absolutely outside the run of play, and just it was like, well, that was 2 blown points, and it's like in that position, you can't have that. That's no, but that's been the story of Colorado. I said to Johnny, I said every time it seems like Colorado has a streak and they have an idea going, it crashes hard. It just stops. It stops immediately, and then they don't get any real momentum going.
And I think all of that has coincided specifically with Jack Price injuries and Jack Price missing time. And I was reading one of the MLS soccer guys. It wasn't Bogart, I forget who, but it was they credited to Danny Wilson's injury and him coming back to a recent surgence. But Danny Wilson's only missed 1 game because of injury this season. Jack Price has missed more than a third of he's missed close to half of the possible games he could play in this season. That's the captain. That's the guy, right? And somehow that has gone so far into the radar, even by our own listeners and our YouTube commenters and everything. People just don't factor in missing the true leader on the field and in the locker room, and a guy who just creates goals from set pieces that otherwise aren't going to be there. He can literally, I said he was the best. That's obviously hyperbole. I'm sure there's some, I'm sure there are others who could reign for that title, but he's right there. This guy will create goals just because he's over the ball on a whistle, and missing that has certainly cost them 2 points or 3 full points in games that you don't really factor that in. because you're so focused in on the now, right? And it's like, okay, we have Acosta and Felipe and stuff like that. And it's like, man, Thomas just nailed it on the head.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. You're right. It's true. It's like they forgot Jack Price existed. But like Giassi Zardes has come on, and I really think between Diego Rubio, who's now on pace to set the single season goal scoring mark for the Rapids, and Giassi kind of finding the right role in front of him. I just keep saying this, like crazier things have happened. I don't expect it to happen, but like a run, like it would not shock me if they had an end to the season like they had an end to last season. I'm not going to call it because I think it's a little too much to ask at this point, but the pieces are there. They have an attacking formula that works really well, and I think they have a backline formula that works really well. Unfortunately, the midfield is just too much of a puzzle at this specific moment.
All right, I was curious to ask. I remember, was it 2018? Andre Shinyaki came out, rookie of the year, phenomenal player, and then I hear he goes to Charlotte, and now I watch him get a contract extension, 5 goals throughout the season. Like, what happened in Colorado? Just as someone who is an outsider here.
I don't know. There's this weird goal scoring drought. Wallace Abubakar is 3rd on the team in goals this season, right? Like our center back is like a not goal scoring center back is 3rd on the goal. Like Mikey Barrios, 1 goal, Jonathan Lewis, 4 goals. Like there's just no one else is scoring. And I think you've tried all these options and circulated, like Galvan came on last season really strong, and you have, obviously Cole Bassett and all these pieces last year kind of took away from his potential to score, I think, especially when Jonathan Lewis was just super sub, like he was amazing off the bench last year. So that happened, stumble out of the block with CONCACAF champions, and there's just no one was finding the net. It was, they were so far below XG, and I knew he was going to score the second they traded him, but I also knew that they needed to trade him, right? It was one of those where it's like, we're going to hate that, but go for it. Like, makes sense, right? Like, they brought Sam Nicholson back, who was here through 2018 to kind of take his place on the wing. But now that you have Mikey Barrios and Lewis with Rubio kind of pushed to that 10, there's nowhere he would have really have played, right? Like he's just not as good. So it's just a tough situation. It was just I think Porg Smith kind of just backed himself into a corner there. And unfortunately he was the piece that had to ship out.
It's always tough, man. It's always tough.
It sucks.
All right. Looking at this current team as well. What are the tactics? What is the tactical philosophy for Colorado in 2022?
Well, right now, what's really working is this front 4, Lewis on the left, Mikey B on the right, Mikey Barrios, just fast as all get out. And Zardes has really, really been able to run, really able to match their stride down and be a target. And then Diego Rubio behind them at that 10, which before now he was a 9, right? Like he was the striker plan going into the season before the Zardes trade. He was a 9 his whole career. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, you're a fantastic 10 or false 9, right? Like somewhere in that range. And it's unlocked something crazy. Like he's at 12 goals and 6 assists right now and should break the goal mark for the team. And then, the midfield right now specifically is patchwork. Acosta out. Price probably won't play with injury. I would be shocked if he did. So you're talking about Felipe Gutierrez, who came in right before the deadline on loan from his club in Chile, Católicas. He was at SKC with Rubio for a second. You have Ralph Prizo, who was kind of the prize of the Mark Anthony K trade on top of all the GAM and draft picks and all that stuff. You have Max Alves, who they spent $1 million to get from Flamengo in Brazil over the offseason. You have Colin Warner, kind of just the vet. He's a Denver kid. Well, not kid. He's 32. Just kind of career 7th, 8th guy off the bench. And you're kind of hoping that your strength of your center of your back line and William Yarbrough in goal and your just absolute burner unit up front can kind of mask whatever you're trying to pull off in the midfield right now.
All right. Justin, looking at our side real quick. I mean, when I look at this matchup, it kind of does right in itself for the Union to have a pretty good one. Colorado side a little bit inconsistent. Obviously, we know how good the Union do look. How do you feel heading into Saturday?
I think I feel pretty good, and the reason I do is I'll say similar to the Dallas game. Well, the Dallas game was a tough 1-0 road loss. The biggest thing and the opportunities that the Union got were in a midfield that couldn't protect the back line, and there was a disconnect between that great attacking front and a decent defense. And with the Union's attack as big as hot as it's been, and the midfield, the way that they've been playing, I mean, if the Rapids can't stop the passing lanes for, I mean, it's not the Union throughout their entire midfield have players that can, in their defense, that can ping balls up the wings. And the difference in from the Union in the start of the season is that this Union team now is balancing possession and counterattacking. And I think picking those moments to exploit the back line and that gap in between the midfield and the back line, the Union will absolutely take advantage of that. And especially, and I've said this, at home, I back the Union 9 times out of 10 just because,
as you should.
It's been a fortress this season. It's been a fortress this season. All 4 losses have been on the road. A couple of them have been midweek games. Like, it is just one of those things where you look at all the pieces and go, it's hard to pick against the Union. It's setting up very nicely, and I think it will be a close game. But I think the Union have had success when they can lately when they can really possess and they can break teams down, and we've seen some good attacks come through here. And if you can keep them out wide, the Union have a defense that know how to clear the balls out of the middle of the box. If you can keep them wide, as you've been doing for most of the season, I think you should feel pretty comfortable. So I think it's going to be a good game, but I definitely think you coming into this, you got to feel a bit confident with the recent form of the Rapids.
100%. I just finished our weekly pod about an hour ago. I don't think any of us had points on the table for this game, right? It would be, if you look at Philly being, in my opinion, there's like 3 teams in the MLS and everybody else, and Philly is one of those 3. You shouldn't go into this. The only case for points for the Rapids on this weekend is it's a trap game. It is like the definition of a trap game. A team coming in, limping in against the best team in the league, with the best goal differential in the league, without a midfield and no hope, no prayer, no chance, is when weird stuff happens in the MLS, right? That is like, and that's the recipe, is it gets weird. That is the Rapids recipe this weekend. It's honestly kind of the Rapids recipe total. Like, I think Philly scored 6 goals 3 times this season, and one of those was 7 goals. Is that right? The Rapids have scored 3 goals or more 4 times this season, right? So they keep it low, they keep it ugly, and it's going to take a weird red card, weird penalty given, something like that in a game where everyone, and I mean everyone, already kind of knows what's going to happen going into it, right? Like, you guys know it, I know it, and that's kind of when the MLS does its MLS thing. So that's kind of their only chance, in my opinion. And I ride for the Rapids, or I ride for the Burgundy, but it's
realism sets in.
It's yeah. It's I wish I was coming in here with they're gonna get this, and it's Rubio's been rested up now for a week because he missed a game with back spasms. That's about it. That's all I really got. That's all I got.
Hey, man, it's not easy playing at Subaru Park, that's for sure, especially in 2022, man.
It's been fun to watch. We kind of, that's always kind of the end of the Philly game before the Rapids. So we're kind of in the press box hanging out and kind of just everyone's like really impressed with Philly, at least from the Western Conference media side. I can say that we've been it's pretty impressive.
It's been long overdue for us. That's for sure. That's
Yes,
for
sir.
sure, man.
Yeah.
Mitch, looking at Colorado on Saturday,
Mhm.
what could be the potential formation and starting 11?
Starting 11, okay, obviously Willie Yarborough, who's one of the more underrated keepers in the league, in my opinion, just based on, didn't get a vote for wasn't even in the consideration for keeper of the year last year. Led the league in shutouts. He's great. He's rock solid. Backline will be you're just Keegan Rosenberry, Philadelphia's own Keegan Rosenberry, be playing at the right back. And then Lucas Estevez on the left, just absolute dog. That is the dog on the team for sure. Hothead. Will definitely scrap it up. And he'll get involved in attack. Both of them will get involved in attack. Kind of their press breakers will shift them both up really high. And then most likely you're going to get Danny Wilson and Laos Abubakar next to each other in center. Could be Gustavo Vaisia could play just because they got the short week with Nashville midweek next week. Gus is huge. Gus is like 6'3", young kid, just the most athletic guy on the field. Makes young kid mistakes. But Lawless is on a hot streak after a bad game against Vancouver. He's had a couple of good performances. Danny Wilson's just the vet. Midfield, you're probably looking at, you're for sure looking at Felipe Gutierrez. Max got hurt. He was playing with Rapids 2 over the weekend. He got hurt. So that's where Fraser has tended to lean, just I think because they're trying to just get that development process started. I would love to see Ralph Prizo play. He's kind of, to me, the heir apparent at the 6 there, where he can just anchor that midfield and get it up to that foursome up front. Definitely has that dog in him too. God, we've been using that too much. I keep saying that too much. It's fine. But he's fun to watch. He's, but also kid. He's like 19. Like he just left home. He literally left his childhood home in the Toronto trade. Like this is his first time not being at home. So it's tough to bank on that, right, as a midfield option. Colin Warner, my guess would be Colin Warner, who just actually had the game of the season for him, at least, will start next to Felipe Gutierrez. And then up top, Zardes at the 9, Rubio behind him at the 10, Lewis, Barrios. Maybe Sam Nicholson starts over Barrios, but most likely, you were saying push it wide, but honestly, if you're letting Mikey and Lewis run, that's the Rapids' best chance at scoring, is them burning those wings, getting it into Diego and to Giassi up front.
All righty. All right. Let's look at the Union side. Justin, any changes you think from Jimmy Boy from Saturday's lineup?
Honestly, no. I think, as I always say every week, the name you write in permanent marker, all the time. Andre Blake, the Minister of Defense back there. Sir. Another clean sheet. Didn't have too much to do. Had to make a couple saves on Taxi Fontes, but
Taxi, he's dope.
It's better. Yeah. It's better to have a guy like Andre and not need to use him than have to consistently because we've been around that the games where Andre's had to bail them out, and while it's fun for me as a goalie, you don't want to have to rely on that. Your back line, listen, arguably probably right now the best defense in the league. Kai Wagner, who despite all the interest, he's not leaving, like at least this season. I think we talk about all this interest. Well, there's been no formal offers, so I'm pretty convinced he's staying. Like at this point, it's gonna be in the winter.
Who would have thought it was Mihalovic over Wagner?
Yeah, I'm not too surprised on that one. And I think if Kai does move, it's going to be in the winter. I said that from the beginning. There's no way. And Montreal said there's no way they were letting him leave, this season. I think Kai was the same thing. Having your partnership of Glesnes and Elliott have been a rock steady, partnership. I think Olivier, despite, typically in a game like this where you have, solid wingers, I would say you'd want the solid defensive presence of Wagner and Harriel. But as I said, with the shape that the Rapids midfield is in, I think it's going to leave a lot of space in behind, and that's where Olivier likes to explore. And his defensive game has been better. And I think, despite the pace of the Rapids wingers, you also have a lot of pace on the Union's fullbacks. Like, that's a matchup I love to see because, whenever the Union have ever faced some pacey wingers, the outside backs have done a pretty good job of keeping up. So I think that's absolutely gonna be the key is stopping those wingers. But I think
that's the game. That's like just keep a camera on those outside, like on the wings. Honestly, if there was just like a little steady cam in the corner showing that battle all game, that's what to watch for.
That's basically going to be it. It's like and I think also I don't think Lewis and and Barrios are going to keep them pinned down, and I think that's going to be how far back are Lewis and Barrios willing to track back because they're going to need the defense is going to need help, and the Union outside backs have. And one of the best things they do is getting up and back, and they and they have this rotation. They can rotate players through the midfield into the back line, and they have coverage, and they have been able to rotate when needed. So that back line is going to get tested, but I think they'll be in good shape. The midfield, as we talked about, El Brujo, underrated, but arguably probably one of the top sixes in the league. For all the crap we give him, he's that grit. He's our dog. He's the one that, I mean, listen, he's good for a few yellow card accumulation suspensions this season, but he typically knows when to pull the line. I think you'll see him marked on Rubio, and I think Diego Rubio. I saw him at SKC, and I've seen him. He can run a bit of a temper if you get under his skin.
Hothead. He runs so hot.
I think Brujo knows how to get under the skin of certain players. And I think between Zardes and Rubio, the player to target there is Rubio because
I'll say Rubio this season, especially probably since that international break, he's been he's been hot, but in the other way, where he is like feeding it. If the opposing team is like three guys at the ref complaining about a call, he's sitting there chirping and like getting in their ear and just doing all the little things to rile up the other club. Whereas before he was the riled up guy, right? He was the one who got too intense and too crazy. And now he's just playing the villain weekly. And he's just like embraced this role of just picking at guys and just like just a little bit here and there, here and there, here and there.
Guys, Tati Castellanos showed that works in the league. So I was going
to say, and that's the thing, and that's what El Brujo thrives on. He thrives on that kind of chaos, and I think that'll be
it's going to be interesting, man.
Little side battle. Ali Bedoya, man, 35 years old and having a renaissance season, and I think
crazy.
Give him
it's
the
crazy
5-year
to
extension
see because you look at what this team has, what they've like, what the freedom that he's been allowed to. We talked about last year coming into the season. I said maybe they should give him more rest because they are working him down to the bone. And this season, the biggest difference is it's not even that they're resting him; it's that he now has the freedom to choose when he makes those runs, to pick those spots, to make those battles. And he looks fresh in the 75th and 80th minute. And so he's really genuinely working, he's working smarter, not harder. Jack McGlynn, I mean, there's a reason why he's already being linked to Europe because the kid can pick out a pass like no other. It is just unfair how his passes can unlock a defense. And I think that's when I said, the space in between the midfield and the defense. Jack McGlynn has a pretty good habit of putting the balls in that perfect spot, either just behind the defense or just in front, and allowing your front three of Gazdag, Uwa, and Carranza to run onto those. And if left unchecked, that front three will absolutely run circles around that defense. And I think that's going to be the thing is which attacking front is going to get it going. And the way that the Union are going, you got to look at it and go, you have two double-digit goal scorers. You have Uwa knocking on the door, double digits. Which I said, the first time in Union history, you have had more than one double-digit goal scorer in MLS regular season play. This, by far, is the best attacking three the Union have ever had. I think arguably it is one of the best in the league. And the fact that, as I said, this Andrew Wiebe put them fourth. Like, I love Austin, but Driussi is that attacking front. That's it. That's all they have. LAFC, it's not fair because they can just sign players
They
that
can just do
max
whatever they
level
want with the
deals,
rules.
and the rules don't exist. I don't get it, but like I'm about to sign Christian Teo, like that's ridiculous. Like that should not happen. And Brian Rodriguez is like this should not be happening, but it is what it is. I think the way that the Union have been playing, and we said this earlier, don't forget you have Quinn Sullivan, you have Paxton Aronson, you have Cory Burke, who has essentially become a super sub this season. I think it's the Union is, again, it says at home with the way they've been playing. Most other seasons, I'd say, yeah, this is absolutely a trap game. I think Jim Curtin, especially after that midweek against Dallas and the fact that you have midweek against Atlanta at home, you have Red Bull away, I think you're looking at us and going, we have a potential to pick up 9 points in a week. We cannot overlook this game because you are starting to put distance between yourselves and NYCFC. If Montreal slips up, right now you're at 6 points. You can push that to 9. So you can start to create a gap. You're creating a gap. You at this point, you are in the playoffs. It is only a formality eventually to where they actually get the points. That is not what you're worrying about. You are worried about keeping that home field advantage.
Taking a week off too. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, even like I think like typically it's a curse to have that, but I think we've been saying this Union team, even compared to last year, this Union team is just built differently because every time you think there's a hole, they fill it with players who are playing well. Like it's just, you talk about the Rapids are what happens when things can go wrong, and you built the Union this season are when things can finally go right. When you hit on a young DP who has been cast out of Miami, when your designated player attacking mid finally has strikers that can actually connect with him, when you hit on that almost $3 million DP striker signing, like the kids start to play well. The pieces are falling into place, and like as I said, where the Rapids are when things can go wrong, the Union are hitting when things can absolutely go right.
Thomas with the comment of the night: Philadelphia Union.
I set myself up for that one. I should not have let Mike get that to. There you go, and Mike with some of our betting tips.
The only thing I would say, and I don't know, did you guys catch the Columbus game the Rapids just had in what now 2 games ago? Cucho comes out and scores a goal 9 minutes into the game, and then just nothing. Like literally, I don't think they had even half XG the rest of the game after that. If the Rapids have a chance, it's they just follow the exact same thing they did against Columbus and just slop fest. Absolute slop fest. Only chance. And they just did it against now. Admittedly, Columbus is not on the level. The attack is not on the level of Philadelphia. But to give my guys the slightest bit of credit that I can, the littlest bit of the little boost I can, is there is a formula for them. Will it happen? I think you guys are going to have a better time than me on Saturday. I would just I'll leave it there.
Want to give a shout out to Doopsburg. We appreciate you, man. If you're not watching and listening to Doop, what is you doing, baby? I love it, man. I love it. All right, let's get to nitty gritty here. Let's get to prediction time. Mike already let us know 5-0 Union. 1 goal for every 1,000 miles of Denver's elevation. So there you go.
Damn.
Mike's going to start strong.
The Rapids haven't got. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, man. Let's just comment on the moment.
The Rapids haven't gotten they've definitely have not been in a lot of games, but they haven't gotten bodied. They haven't had a DC Philly game. They haven't had a Philly
a
Houston game. Right. Yeah. Right. They haven't. Their defense is just good enough to stop a flood of goals. And they're just, Fraser's done a good job of raising the floor as high as possible, playing more vets than he, sometimes has to lean on kids, but for the most part, it's a pretty veteran group across the board. Diego's on fire. Zardes round into form. Wings are looking as good as they've looked all season. probably 3-1 Philly.
Okay. And
2-1, 3-1, somewhere in that range.
all right.
Good game, entertaining game. Yeah, somewhere in that range.
So as we always do here, I want you also, Mitch, to give us a key for the Union to beat the Rapids, since this is a Union podcast.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's be the mentally tough team, right? Like the Rapids have proven that they will, like, they have a lapse, right? And sometimes those lapses don't get you, right? Like sometimes not running out to the wing and kind of drifting back and trying to find a guy to body near you doesn't cost you a game, right? So it doesn't cost you a goal. This season, every one of those wrong decisions has given up a goal, cost them a point or two or three, and it's just been that kind of season where the mistake gets compounded on more so than just a chance. It's a goal, right? It's a decisive moment in the match. So taking advantage of the one or two opportunities the Rapids give, and they will, it'll be a pass back to center to to a center back to reset, and they'll just look at each other and let it go. And then can you capitalize and turn that turnover into a goal? Can you do that? The answer for Philly all season has been yes, in spades, has been goals on goals, and not letting teams win the dirty games, the 2-1s, the 2-0s. When you look through Philly's schedule, it's a lot of that. And if Philly lets the Rapids get away with those mistakes, maybe the Rapids hang in. If they don't, if they can capitalize and be the stronger team mentally and just hammer those little margin moments, they'll win for sure.
That's definitely a good point, man. It's what's made the Union so good so far, for sure, man. Justin, prediction?
I think Mitch hit on the head. I'm thinking a 3-1 Union victory. Like I said, it's gonna be an entertaining game, but as he mentioned, those pass backs, those opportunities where the ball just drifts, that's where the Union pounce.
Yep.
Whether it's your front three or even, there was a chance against DC that, the goalie saved, but Ali Bedoya, the ball just, tries to get chipped and Ali traps it down and on the volley fires it. And the goalie makes the save, but those are the kind. And, Cory Burke chasing down, the outside back and forcing a turnover. And he could have been taken down, powers through it, creates the chance, and Carranza fires it home. Like, it's those moments that I think the Union in past seasons would not have taken advantage of. But this season, the Union are scoring, and they're scoring the chances that matter. And as I said it, I think the biggest thing the Union will need to take advantage of, and I think the key to beating the Rapids is going to be that space between the midfield and the defense. Is taking advantage. How much space are you given? Are the defenders backing off? Because as we know with the front three in the midfield, if you keep backing off, well, we have guys we have range. As you all know, we have a Viking, and he can blast it from 35 yards if you give him the chance. Jack Elliott can also
There'll be one or two of those chances. There will, there's just going to be. They're
exactly, and that's
consistent. The one consistent thing about the Rapids is that they're inconsistent enough to allow two chances like that a game.
And that's the thing is, against a team like the Union, those aren't the chances you want to give up, because if they don't get it on them, say Yarbrough makes a save and it goes out for a corner, well, the Union could be scoring in that corner. Like, they've created that chance off that, lapse in judgment, and then it leads to a goal on the next play or the next sequence. So those are the moments that the Union take advantage of. And when the Union sends blood in the water, we've seen it. The Union will absolutely stomp on the throats of their opponents. And I think this is a game where, say it goes 2-0 early by half, the Union could just, they'll do what they do, and they'll make mass changes in the 65th minute, and they'll let the kids run rampant and just terrorize the back line like they did against DC. So
the Rapids definitely, as a defense, if you're a betting person, is gambling legal in Philly? Can you just go on DraftKings?
I'm on the area.
Yeah, right.
You can?
New Jersey.
Oh, you can go over to Jersey. Okay. This is not the game to bet on on your guy that has 2 goals on the season to score a goal. This is like the Rapids give up, like Drusy came in, scored goal. Mukhtar came in, scored goals. It was Cucho against Columbus. Like it's your guy. Like who's like pick the horses if you're putting money on goal scorers. Like
It would be
that's
definitely be
Carranza.
Gazdag
Yeah.
or Carranza.
correct. It's not going to be a random goal scorer. It's going to be it's going to be they at least force the Stars to be the ones to make the plays.
So it's gonna be a hat trick. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean,
Could you imagine? And that brings
I haven't
it to
given up a
the
hat trick yet this season, but if there's a game where it's on the table, it's this one. Yeah, for sure.
But
All
again,
right, well, listen.
you're one away from 3 double-digit goal scorers in the Union. Like it's an eventuality of when this could be 3 double-digit goal scorers.
We have to perform well because the one and only
Oh, that's
Tyrese
right.
Maxey
I
may be
saw
in the
that on-
stands. They say he's
My
better
guy.
than Kevin Durant in Philly. All right,
That's
so
my guy. I'm a Kentucky hoops guy. That's
there
my
you go,
dude.
man.
Love Maxey.
He did confirm it
Maxey.
on social media, so we'll see. We'll see if he's banging the drum in the river end. Who knows?
Shouts to the Phillies broadcasting crew to get that answer out of Tyrese Maxey last night. So thank you to NBC Philly.
Philly
All right.
rules, dude.
Mitch, man, we really appreciate you coming on here, man. You
Absolutely.
gave us some great insight on the Colorado Rapids, but give us, for the people who are,
Mhm.
having a hankering, want to know what's going on with the
Sure.
Rapids, where can people find your work and, of course, the Denver Rapids?
Yeah, of course. So DNVR Sports YouTube page. We're very active on there. We have our we have the #1 Bronco show in the world. We have the #1 Nugget show in the
Nice.
world. We have the #1 Avalanche show in the world. We were actually finished the playoffs as the #4 hockey podcast, period, in existence. #1 team specific. We're very focused on YouTube, pulling up like you guys are just doing right here, pulling up the comments, interacting with the fans, doing that. You can follow me on Twitter, Mitch__Carroll. Yeah, I mean, we don't, I'm not a writer. I'm a podcast host. So, stick to the YouTube and check us out there.
Absolutely, man. We'll definitely put the links to all this in the descriptions on where we should listen to podcasts on YouTube as well. But definitely check them out. Mitch, seriously, man, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks
here,
for having me, guys. It was awesome. Thank you so much.
Besides the 90 minutes that are going to be going down in Chester, best of luck to you. Other than
Thank
that,
you.
know,
Thank you.
hopefully
Thank you. You too, guys. Hey, give them hell in the playoffs, man.
I appreciate that, man. That's going to do it for another episode of Dupe by the River, ladies and gentlemen. Big thank you to Mitch of the Denver Rapids. Of course, a big shout out to you guys for checking on in. And of course, thank you to Justin as well for always putting up with me and giving us the duping insight that we need as always. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe for more Dupe by the River live viewings. And of course, that is Mitch Carroll from the Denver Rapids. That is Julian Carranza, Butcher Shop Friedberg. Of course, I am El Parcero Philly, and we're